So what is the slope? It is a change in my dependent variable for change in independent variable. So this is something we discussed. Now, likewise, if I'm looking into what is the elasticity, elasticity and slope are related, as I said. This the same thing become the percentage change. So I would say that the percentage change in my dependent variable over percentage change in my independent variable, right? Now, depending upon what type of elasticity we are dealing with. Now, as you know, that there can be, given our discussion, it can be own price elasticity. This can be cross price elasticity. It can be income elasticity. It can be elasticity with respect to test. We can also name as test elasticity, so on and so forth. So please note that whatever thing I am talking about, the only thing which is getting changed in the denominator is the name. So what is not changing is my numerator, So the numerator is what is my dependent variable. This is the change in quantity, right? The only thing which is changing is the independent variable or denominator. So if I am looking into dq over dq q by dp over p, this becomes my own price, right? So basically saying that if my price changes of the good changes, in what proportion way the demand for that particular good is changing. Now, what is cross price? Cross price is basically saying that if the price of my substitute or complement good change, so this, rather than the own price, let's say that the price of the substitute good changes, let's call that a dps over ps, where s stands for substitute. So if the price of substitute good changes, what is the change in my own demand? For instance, if the price of coffee changes, then what is the change in demand for tea? So this becomes then cross price elasticity. Likewise, if I am talking about income, so basically this becomes that di over I, where I is my income, basically saying that if income is changing, then how my quantity demand is changing. So this become my income elasticity. Okay, so the point to note here is the only thing which is changing, again I am repeating, is your independent variable. The only thing which is changing is your denominator. Your numerator is not changing. The numerator is same. The numerator is the change in quantity demanded, right? The only thing which is changing is the denominator. It can be price, it can be income, it can be own price, which I'm calling at PO, it can be price of substitute. So depending upon which one of the variable I have in the denominator, or which one is my independent variable, depending on that, I will be calling that as whether it is own price, whether it is cross price, or whether it is income elasticity. Now, as you can very well understand, that if I'm talking about own price, the elasticity will be negative or positive. Let me repeat the question. If I'm talking about the own price, the elasticity will be negative side, means negatively, the sign, it will be negative or positive?
So negative.
Negative, because as the price changes,
Price increase.
your, it can increase, it can decrease, but the direction of quantity demanded will be opposite. For instance, if price increases, quantity demand will decrease. If price fall, quantity demand will increase. Okay. Likewise, if I'm talking about the cross price elasticity, now cross price elasticity can take value either negative or positive. Why? Because cross price basically means I'm looking into the price of my either substitute or complement good. So if the price of the complement good, for instance tea and sugar, if the price of sugar increases, then quantity demand for tea may fall, provided the consumer is also taking sugar and tea together. On the other hand, so in that case, if I'm looking into the cross price elasticity with respect to complement good, then the thing will be negative, like what we have seen in the context of own price elasticity. On the other hand, if the price increase happens with respect to the substitute good, then the cross price elasticity will be positive, because if the price of coffee increases, the quantity demand for tea will also increase, because quantity people will actually substitute more tea with respect to coffee, because the price of coffee has increased. So depending upon the nature of the good, whether it is complement or substitute, you see the cross price elasticity to be positive or negative. Is that clear? Now, what will happen with respect to income elasticity? With respect to income elasticity, it is always
So
going to be,
positive change.
it will be positive, because as your income increases, you are going to buy more of goods and services. So uh, the the income elasticity is always positive. Own price elasticity is always negative. Cross price elasticity, depending upon what type of goods we are considering. If the good we are considering are complement in nature, then the cross price elasticity is negative. If it is substitute in nature, cross price elasticity is positive. Is that clear? Okay, now let me also tell you three other concepts, which is elastic, inelastic, and unit elastic. Now, what are these three things? And so basically, uh, I am using these three words, and let me also tell you why these three words are important. So let's say that depending upon, and this has got a direct relevance on whether it makes sense on part of the producer to increase the price or not. So I use three words. The first is elastic, the second is inelastic, and the third is unit elastic. Okay, what does all this mean? So for the time being, let's start with the own price elasticity, and you can actually extend this concept of elastic, inelastic, and unit elastic to other goods as well. So let's start with the concept of own price elasticity. Now, typically, what is the total revenue? Total revenue is nothing but,
PR. PQ, sorry.
very good. So it's nothing but P times Q, where P is my, what we say,
Price. Own price.
Price.
per unit price. Okay. So this distinction is necessary. So per unit, how much, what is the price of 1 unit of good? Okay. Now let's try to do something a little bit differently, in the sense that if I want to rewrite this equation, and this is a little bit of mathematics we are doing. Basically what we are saying is, what is the meaning of this, what I've written? It is saying that uh, uh, for a given change in price, what this is saying is, for a given change in price, so D means for a small change in price, D means difference or the differentiation. So what it means that if price were to increase from P1 to P2, please listen to this carefully. If the price were to increase from P1 to P2, or for that matter, if price were to fall from P2 to P1, in a simple term, what we are saying is for a given change in price, so change can be both upward and downward. So for a given change in price, how much change is happening with respect to what? Total revenue. अगर मैं price एक unit increase करता हूँ, how the total revenue is going to change, right? Are you guys following? Because this DP is basically saying for a given change in price, how D times P times Q. What is P times Q? It is the total revenue. How the total revenue is changing. So if I were to rewrite this, what can I can rewrite this as Q plus P times dq dp, because what is the formula for differentiation? So first I am actually using dp over p, this becomes 1, so that is giving me q, and second I am coming p times dq times dp. Okay, is that clear? Now
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
now in the third step, what you do is you take q common. If I take q common, what I am getting is 1 plus p over q dq over dp. Okay, now you can very well see that now we are basically having something like this, where ep is my own price elasticity. Now please note this particular thing, this particular thing. So this particular thing I can rewrite as p dq over q dp, right? So this can be rewritten as dq over q over dp over p. This is nothing but own price elasticity. Now why this is negative? Because agar with respect to own price, so this is my own price elasticity. Why this negative sign? Because agar मेरा price increase होता है, my quantity demand is going to fall, and therefore the nature of the relationship is negative. Agar instead of price, if I would have taken income, then this would have been positive. But for the time being, please understand that I can rewrite this equation. I can actually, so what is the objective? The objective is to figure out that if price changes, what impact it has on what? Total revenue.
Quantity. Oh, sorry, total revenue. ठीक है sir.
क्योंकि मेरा न्यूमरेटर क्या है? Total revenue. So if price is changing, what is the impact it has on total revenue? Now why this is important? Because if you are an entrepreneur, let's say that, so you will do due diligence before you actually increase the price, because you know that if you were to increase the price, two things can happen. Either your profit will go up or your profit may come down. Now why it may come down? Because if because of your increase in price, your quantity demand, like that example we were showing, if your quantity demand falls to that extent that price times Q start falling, then your profitability will actually start falling. Are you getting my point? And therefore, before you start increasing or decreasing the price, it is very important to know the type of elasticity your product is commanding. So we talked about 3 types of elasticity, namely elastic, inelastic, and so elastic means your EP is less than 1. Sorry, this is greater than 1. If it
Yes,
is
sir.
elastic, then EP is greater than
Greater than 1.
1. If it is inelastic, it is less than 1. For unit elastic, EP is equal to 1. Now you guys can tell me in a very simple term, अगर मेरा unit elastic है product, that means if my price increases, then what happens to my change in total revenue? Let me repeat the question. If my product is unit elastic, which means it is taking value equal to 1, so for a given change in price, this becomes equal to, if this is 1, that means
So
this,
equal revenue, equal change
No
in revenue.
change in quantity.
nahi, this becomes equal to what?
नहीं नहीं सर,
So ये
proportionate
1 आ गया
change in
ना.
quantity.
This becomes equal to 0, right? अगर यहाँ पे 1 लगा देता हूँ, if this is equal to 1, right? 1 minus 1 is how much? 0. 0 times q is 0. So dpq by dp is 0. Now listen to this very carefully. What does it imply? It implies that if price increases by 2 units, the quantity demand will also fall by 2 units, and therefore the net change in P times Q is 0. The net change in total revenue is 0. मतलब जिस proportion से price increase हो रहा है, ठीक वैसे ही quantity demand is also falling. So the total change in revenue is 0. Let me try to explain this with an example. Let's say initially you were buying 2, this is my price, this is my quantity is 100. So my total revenue is P times Q, which is 200, right? Now, मान लो now price have increased to 4. Okay, price has increased to 4. That means how much percentage the price has increased? How much percent? It has doubled, right? So it has increased by 100%. That means Q will also fall by 100%. Matlab, it will become 50. So under new scenario, my PQ is also 400.
200 ही रहेगा.
This is also 200. So the net change in PQ, what is the net change in PQ? Because of increase in price is 200 less 200 is equal to 0. समझ में आ रहा है? So when the price is unit elastic, then basically what it is telling you, given by this formula, it is telling you that the producer should be indifferent, or for that matter the government should be indifferent to increase the price. Government meaning that the government should also be indifferent to increase or impose a tax, because ultimately in terms of revenue generated, the change in revenue generated is 0. Okay. Now try to think what happens if this is elastic. Elastic matlab this is greater than 1. If it is greater than 1, then what happens with respect to, let me erase this. So for unit elastic, we have seen that there is no change in total revenue. But मान लीजिए that this is now greater than 1, then what happens? So greater than 1,
Sir, quantity demanded changes in greater than change in price.
greater than 1 means your change in revenue will
Quantity
fall.
demand.
No,
Yes, sir.
because ultimately we are trying to look into what is the change in price. Because of change in price, what is the impact of that on revenue, total revenue. So if so for unit elastic, we have seen that even if I increase the price, the quantity, the change in total revenue is equal to 0 for that, or dpq is equal to 0. This is what we have seen. My question is for elastic, meaning that when this is greater than 1, then what does it mean? What happens to dpq? Because ultimately we are interested in dpq, because we are trying to see what is happening with respect to change in total revenue, right?
So revenue will decrease.
This will fall, right? This will. And for y, because my formula is this is
Q.
so this is what we have written, that d over dp over dq is sorry, this is q times 1 minus elasticity. So if this is greater than 1, that means this become my negative. That means q is always positive. Q is always positive. So positive times negative is, so the change in revenue, total revenue, will be negative. And if this is inelastic, which means dpq will be positive. So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, it makes sense for the industrialist or the manufacturing units to increase the price if and only if your product is inelastic. Product is inelastic means because of change in price, the change in quantity is not so much as is happening with the change in price. Matlab, even if price increases by 20%, or going by the example we have shown, even if the price increases by 50%, like in the previous case, in case of unit elasticity, we are showing that quantity demanding falling by 50% because price is increasing by 50%. But in case of inelastic, what it is saying, that even if the price is increasing by 50%, my quantity demand will fall less than 50%. For elastic means, if the price is increasing by 50%, my quantity demand will fall in excess of 50%, because of which my total revenue is falling. So depending upon my whether the product is elastic or it is inelastic, I am going to see this outcome. Or from the perspective of profit maximizing, let's say you are selling one product, uh, like we were talking about cigarettes. So cigarette is basically typically inelastic, and because of that, you see that initially people try to increase the price because they know that the revenue is not going to fall to that extent. But beyond a point, of course, this is going to fall. So if my product is inelastic, meaning that I don't care about the price as a consumer, I will consume that amount. So in that case, the producer, they find it beneficial to increase the price because the total revenue is not going to fall. Why it is not going to fall? Because the consumer, as a consumer, I don't care about the price. And if I don't care about the price, my decision to reduce the quantity is not going to be as much as I would have reciprocated had my product was elastic. Is that clear?